Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. With this series, I'd like to talk to you guys about fractals individually, quickly, and at their easiest level. For those of you guys out there who are looking to do fractals at the master level, I'll be leaving links into the description of each of these videos from a YouTuber named DeRoyer, who has made some fantastic and very detailed guides on the hardest version or the master tier fractals of the Mist. So whether you came here looking for a higher level guide or you play through this guide and want to know what it's like at some of the higher levels, you were pretty much covered. At the start of this fractal, you'll find yourself in an icy cave next to a bonfire. Anytime you're next to a bonfire, you'll gain stacks of warmth, and you'll be able to use that to resist the cold. If you find yourself away from a bonfire for too long and you're out in the cold, you will gain stacks of hypothermia that will damage you over time. Luckily though, in front of where you spawn in, you'll find a giant bonfire that you'll need to use your special action hotkey to light in the beginning. Once you do light the bonfire, you need to keep it lit long enough to melt a giant ice wall that's preventing us from moving forward in this fractal. And to do that, you'll need to find some logs either to the left or right of where you first came in on that bonfire and throw them in the fire. Additionally, Svanir and some ice elementals will start to swarm around the bonfire. While the Svanir can stack up around the bonfire and make this a little bit more difficult, it's best to avoid them or at least prioritize the ice elemental. This because ice elementals will kamikaze the bonfire and melt themselves over the flames, requiring you to use even more logs to keep it lit. Not only that, but if you're not careful, they can eventually put the fire out and you'll begin gaining stacks of hypothermia. So just be sure to kill the ice elementals whenever you see them and take care of Svanir if they become a problem until the fire has been lit just long enough to melt the wall in front of you. With the ice wall out of the way, we can grab the Mistlock Singularity and head down the path. After a short walk, you should reach a location that has 5 fireplaces in a circle, and in the center of that circle, we'll find our first encounter, the elemental source. For this fractal, you're going to want to keep as many of the bonfires lit as possible, and this is for 2 reasons. Firstly, in addition to the stacks of hypothermia you'll gain without any fires lit, the elemental source will also create a blizzard, making it harder to see where you're at, and again light those fireplaces to make the blizzard go away and resume the fight. Secondly, having fires lit will remove a buff called Rime Shield from the elemental source, this buff allowing him to take 0 damage until that buff has been removed. Just like before, you'll be able to use your special action hotkey in order to light the fires, and surrounding those fires you should find some more logs like before that you can use to keep them replenished. While you're trying to keep the fires lit, some Svanir will begin spawning, and you can avoid these for the most part, but don't hesitate to deal with any that are preventing you from either keeping the fires lit or that might pose a threat. For the elemental source itself, you're just going to need to keep the fires lit long enough to remove Rime Shield. Pay attention to the elemental source until that buff is gone, and then you can start doing damage. Every 25% damage that you do, the elemental source is going to fire off a large AoE that does 50% of the remaining life of any of the fireplaces. Just keep the fires lit, avoid Svanir if you can, and deal damage whenever possible. If I had any advice for this encounter, it would just be to make sure that after each 25% of the elemental source health, you immediately replenish your fires. This is not only to make sure that it's as smooth a run as possible, but if one member of your team decides to focus only the elemental source, you'll make sure that the fires have enough health to withstand another 50% damage. Once the elemental source has finally fallen, you can continue down the only available path, and this might be a little confusing if this is your first time going through, but what most parties do is just skip all the Svanir enemies that you'll be encountering and follow this path until it dead ends in a cave. If you're at all confused where to go, just use the torches as a guide as they lead right up to that cave. Before moving forward, make sure that all members of your party have made it to the entrance of the cave, and once everybody's ready, it's time to fight the final boss for this fractal. This time, like previous fractals, it's going to be a legendary Shaman. To start the fight, you just need to head down the hallway until it opens up into a small icy room. Here you'll see the Shaman alongside some other enemies, and I feel like it's best just to focus the Shaman. As this is a boss enemy, you need to use crowd control abilities to break his break bar whenever you can. Doing so will stun him and prevent him from using any of his ice abilities that will put a stacking debuff on you, dealing damage over time. and this is telegraphed anytime the Shaman leans forward and lets out some blue fire. At 50% of the Shaman's health, he's going to teleport to a location you won't be able to reach, and instead will have to fight the elite Ice Brood Effigy. This guy is your basic fractal mob with a break bar, so just break the break bar and deal damage whenever you can. Even though the legendary Shaman isn't currently present, he is casting some large AoEs on the ground, so look out for those when you're dealing damage to that Ice Brood Effigy, and once the Effigy is finally dealt with, you'll be able to resume the battle with the legendary Shaman. Being that our legendary Shaman is a Norn, he will turn into his animal form or his bear form at 25% health, and here he can deal quite a bit more damage, so be very careful whenever you see him in this form. Just try to keep your distance and do some damage whenever you can, until you finally defeated this boss and completed the Snowblind Fractal. If I had any advice for this final encounter, it would mostly just be to be aware of your surroundings. Make sure you're not taking too much damage either from the legendary Shaman or from his AoEs whenever you're fighting the Ice Brood Elemental. I hope you found this helpful in completing the Snowblind Fractal. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.